Okay, again, we've got this shed, and I just walked past kind of V-shape just in this plant here. And so if I position myself here, those plants will just frame our subjects perfectly there. We can capture both the shed and that line of trees we were looking at earlier, and something like that should be perfect. Okay, welcome back everybody. I am back out on the trails. We've taken ourselves out of the thick forests, and I found myself in a much more open field here. But as you can see, we do not have my Sony A7IV with me, and instead we're going to be trying out the iPhone 14. I get some comments sometimes about what camera do you have and what camera do you recommend, and I know all photographers say it, but the best camera to take photos is the one that you've got. Today we're going to be trying that out and kind of testing the limits of what a smartphone can capture here. I'm excited. I haven't really taken some intentional photography with my phone for quite a while, so this will be a good little test for the both of us. So let's jump right in. I see some little birds down here. Let's get off of video mode. Kind of test the zoom capabilities of this one. Zoom out just a touch here. Get the focus on those birds there. And then I think what I'll do is just kind of focus and then grab that exposure slider and slide up just a little bit. Get more of those highlights involved in the image there, and snap a photo like that. We've got some really nice flowers down here, and the way they're kind of swaying in this breeze is nice. I won't be able to capture that in a photo, but I think I'm just gonna get it a little low on the same level here. And just get a macro shot of something. See if I can find a frame that I like. They're all very similar. This might just be a snap and shoot option here. Let's try a bit of a landscape shot here. I think that building up there, just in the middle of this whole field, could be a nice subject. Let's get up here just to the edge of this trail. Get the phone pointed in that direction. And I don't really want those like factory smoke towers over there. So I'm gonna zoom in just a bit more. Use the rule of thirds and kind of put this little shed just on this corner, this left corner of those third lines there. And something like that should do just perfect there. Not sure what this plant is. It's got those thorns on the stems here, but I'm thinking we can get a photo just kind of looking down the stems here into some of these leaves in the background. So I'm gonna get my focus somewhere in the back there. And the wind is going a little crazy, but usually the shutter speed with these phones is pretty good at picking up and freezing that movement for us. That should work. Gives us a little bit of that foreground, but keeps that subject in focus in the back. And it might be kind of weird, but I like the lighting change here just on this trail. We've also got those plants coming in on the right side, and I think I'll just take a vertical shot here and we can kind of include all of that into one image. Just a pretty simple one here. And then if you look far enough into the distance, you can see nice little subject in the back there. And down here we've got kind of a bit of sludge and stuff, but I like this texture down here. It's kind of like dry rock sand kind of texture. Gives it sort of that like desert feel a little bit almost. So I'm gonna zoom in on that here. And there's not too much to the framing or composition in this one. I don't want these shadows involved, so I'm gonna get those out of the frame, but that's the only thing I'm really too concerned about here. Just grabbing those textures. And I kind of like this little piece here. Looks like an old staircase down to the water, but this writing could be a nice subject for us. And we've got this opening here. I could just take a shot like this and that would be okay, a little generic and not too exciting. We've got a little of a walkway, and so instead I'm gonna come down to, I think it's wheat down here. And instead of just taking that shot from up there, we can get close to this foreground subject and really just get in on some of this to add. It is kind of a completely different image here, but we're still getting this wheat with the background landscape. And I think this is a better way to do it. Let's even go to portrait mode here. And I'm gonna go into portrait style as well. And this will really pick up on some of this wheat and just put a very sharp focus on it. If we go to the top arrow up here, we can press that and it'll bring up some settings down here we can play with. If I go to the F, that'll allow us to control our aperture, and we can go anywhere from f16 to f1.4 with the lighting we've got right now. I'm gonna bump it up to f16 because I don't want that sharp of a focus drop off. And then even here we can get the focus on this wheat, but still have somewhat of a focus in the background there. And then while we're here, we've got a nice light change with these shadows on the left and the really bright highlights on top, along with this color change as well between the two. So I'm gonna kind of get in the middle of all of that that's going on. We'll get our focus on this close part here. Something like that should be great. Flying really quickly here. Let's point our camera and just get a couple shots of that flying. Maybe right over this landscape here. Something like that should work. Quick little spur of the moment there. And it looks like here we've got a really nice kind of curve of this field here, and you can sort of feel that a little bit. Maybe even more so on this side. Let's head a little further up here and take one of that view behind us. And even though it's not actually movement other than the slight breeze, it sort of makes it feel like it's moving with that curve there. Do we want the sun in it? I'm gonna say no. So we can zoom in just on this curve here, take a photo just like that. Nice and easy one there. And we're getting a bit closer to this shed up here. I'm gonna, as I get closer, see if there's any shots leading up to it that we can take. This is a nice little area that's laid out for us here. We've got this pathway, and normally it wouldn't be too exciting, but the way we're positioned, it's leading right up to that shed in the background. So I'm going to take a portrait to kind of highlight that vertical line we've got going on here. And we can zoom in. I'm zooming in a bit more than I probably need to. It gets rid of some of this pathway, but I want that shed in the background to be pretty visible in our picture. So this might be a good shot to capture this shed. And I say here specifically because we've got that sign on the left. And if we can underexpose it just a little, so that way the writing is legible, then it adds a little bit more context to what's going on here. And I really like this roadway here. It's got, I don't know if they're flower petals or what is on it. Maybe cotton or something. I'm gonna wait for that person to be done taking their photo. Let's see, what else can we find while we're waiting? I really like that group of trees just standing alone there. Maybe we can include that little shed again to kind of balance out the image a little bit. I'm gonna brighten it up. And I don't think I want either one of them in the middle. So we're just trying to kind of center them both equally in the frame there. And something like that should be perfect. Let's go back to this trail. This one I'm gonna go back to portrait. And we'll brighten this up. Or just focus, it'll brighten for us. And wait for that car to pass in the background. And there we go. And again, with that curve, it kind of gives the feeling of some movement, even though there isn't any going on. Might be able to grab a non-nature photo here, just of this no trespassing sign. And we can get real wide with this. Our shadow, I think our shadow might ruin it. We might zoom back in. I'm trying to keep it symmetrical, but the building itself is not symmetrical, so we're not gonna try too hard on that one. And what we can do here is pick up just the edge of this shed, but keep the background landscape as a nice focal point of the image here. Zoom out just a little bit. Keep that full triangle shape of the roof. I didn't like how it kind of got cut off there. So I'm going to zoom back out. And that should work. There's a bench right here. I always kind of like to photograph empty benches. I think there's usually some sort of emotion or something there. I think sometimes it can make people think about who who they would sit there with, or just remind them of a person in general. And it looks like we've got some kind of clean lines through this wheat here. And it might be a good chance for us to just line up with it and get a shot. I'm going to start with just a shot that's focused on the leaves here and make that line in the back just kind of subconsciously be there a little bit, and then we can zoom in, and we might even be able to get one with a car right in the middle there if I can hold my phone still enough. So we got the focus there, just gonna wait, take a couple, and we'll see if we got one in the center. I think this is a nice shot here, not only just because of the trail and the amount of highlights and color contrasting with everything else is quite a bit here, but we can also see the trail winding, which again, I tend to like. I think it kind of leads the viewer through the photo, which is a nice leading line technique. And then this plant on the left is also a nice little subject point to add an additional layer there. Not sure if it will come out very well, but we've got some nice lines here. We've got that kind of dry dirt texture on the bottom, and it's separating these colors and textures from each other. Plus that additional landscape in the background is nice. Okay, again, we've got this shed, and I just walked past this kind of V shape just in this plant here. And so if I position myself here, those plants will just frame our subjects perfectly there. We can capture both the shed and that line of trees we were looking at earlier. And something like that should be perfect. And we've got some really nice lines along this field, so we can try that. This photo again. Just really bringing out those lines. Again, it feels like movement. I think it's really helpful to look for shapes in your images, because even though right now on video there is a lot of movement with that wind, it can be tough to bring that out in a photo. But what doesn't really come through a video and does through a photo is that movement through shapes. I like this landscape here. It's gonna be just a point and shoot shot, but I think it's got some really nice layers with this wetland area, that green kind of outpoint there, and then those mountains in the background. So we should be able to capture all that in just one simple photo here. Try and get those mountains centered as much as possible. And if we look behind us here, and I think we might call it soon here. I'm gonna try and grab one more along this water, getting that shed in the image again, which we've done a lot today, and that is okay. Photo just like this, keeping that open sky as a big chunk of it. And then let's get one last one, test a close-up of this flower here. It's gonna be tough to keep it centered with this wind, but we'll test the shutter speed. That'll probably do it for today. I think the iPhone, I would say its number one thing it's got going for it is just its compactness. It feels really nice to not have to worry about lugging around a big body camera with, you know, even an additional lens on it as well. So it's really nice to just kind of have in your hand and be able to stick it in your pocket if you want to put it away or bring it out whenever. So that is a perk for sure. But in terms of photo capabilities, it does have its limits, and that is me comparing it to my Sony A7IV, which is not a very fair comparison. But just in terms of like the quality of the image, you're not going to be able to, you know, blow these up and hang them on your wall as often as using a more quote-unquote professional camera. But hopefully with the images I took today, you're able to see that you can practice all sorts of photography techniques and compositions. I was working on rule of thirds, leading lines, adding layers to the image with foreground, and so all of that is possible with whatever camera you want to use. Don't limit yourself and make yourself wait to have money to afford a nice camera to start learning how to take photos. That can be done on something as simple as a phone camera. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week for a new video.